a different revenge. Thought about escaping abuse and thriving. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, let alone feel such a sense of relief after walking away. But here I am, telling this story. Part vent, part celebration. About how a dream arrangement with my best friend and their spouse went off the rails, and how I found my own form of quiet revenge by simply moving forward with my life. It all started when my best friend, who's 27, their spouse, 26, and I, 28, decided it would be a great idea to pool our resources and buy a house together. We did our due diligence, or so we thought. We talked at length about boundaries, finances, responsibilities, living arrangements, all of that. It felt like we were doing everything right. On paper, it made so much sense. We'd share mortgage payments, decorate the place, and build a little community under one roof. A mini collective, if you will. Unfortunately, the reality was far different. Once we all moved in, I found myself at the receiving end of emotional abuse, manipulation, and financial exploitation. Mostly from my best friend's spouse. But ultimately, my friend played a part too. I'd be working extra hours covering bills or making sacrifices while they contributed the bare minimum or even nothing at all. Whenever I tried to confront the spouse or set boundaries, they'd turn the blame on me, painting me as irrational or oversensitive. It was a stressful, toxic environment. Every day, I felt like I was walking on eggshells, unsure what mood I'd be dealing with when I got home. My mental and physical health started to deteriorate under that strain. One day, everything just exploded. Shouting, accusations, that sort of meltdown scene you never imagine happening with people who are supposed to be on your side. It became clear I had to leave. Getting out was far from easy, but with encouragement from friends, family, and a therapist, I managed to break away. I packed my stuff, found somewhere else to live, and basically had to restart my life from scratch. Immediately, though, I noticed a huge weight off my shoulders. Sometimes you don't realize how suffocating a place is until you're standing outside breathing fresh air. In the aftermath, I learned that the spouse was telling a sob story to my best friend, claiming they'd changed, feeding them lines about how they'd made mistakes and wanted to do better. My best friend, who had previously also suffered under that spouse's manipulative behavior, seemed to buy into the spouse's new persona. But it was just that, a persona. Eventually, the spouse returned to the same tactics, belittling me from afar, making me out to be the bad guy who had abandoned them, throwing around vague threats that never quite crossed the line legally, but gave me that uneasy sense of potential retaliation. Meanwhile, I decided to tackle our collective financial nightmare, which was a tangle of loans, names on a mortgage, and shared debt. My name was still on the house, so I couldn't fully wash my hands of the situation. The spouse's approach was basically to not pay and expect me to shoulder it all. They seemed convinced I'd be forced to either go down with them in financial ruin or rush in and fix it, but I chose a third option. I got legal advice and discovered that bankruptcy might be my only real way out if they wouldn't sell the house or cooperate on any solutions. So that's what I did, and I've kept that fact to myself for now, letting them find out through official channels, partly to protect my mental health and safety. There's no point giving them a chance to lash out further. Some might call that part the revenge, since it forces them to face the consequences of their own inaction. But to me, that's just the necessary legal maneuver. The real revenge, my personal sense of satisfaction, comes from how my life has blossomed since I left that toxic setup. That day I moved out, I could practically feel my blood pressure drop. I started reconnecting with old friends, accepting invitations, and seeking out new opportunities. My physical health improved, my mental clarity returned, and I began to remember who I was before all this negativity weighed me down. Now, I've been accepted into a grade school program I'll start later this year, something I might never have felt free enough to pursue if I'd stayed in that chaotic household. I'm exploring new hobbies, taking spontaneous weekend trips, and having a social life again. The relationships with people who genuinely care for me have grown richer and more supportive. I don't spend my days dreadfully anticipating the next confrontation or meltdown. Freed from that environment, I've realized just how much I'd been limiting myself, whether it was refusing to try new activities or skipping events because I felt drained and depressed. I'm actually thriving. So yes, in a sense, my revenge is that I'm choosing my own happiness now. I'm letting them deal with whatever fallout arises from their unwillingness to handle finances or from the illusions they fed each other about how easy it is to keep a house afloat. I'm not the bank of last resort for them anymore, and I'm not their emotional punching bag. They can't guilt trip me into returning or bailing them out. I've put up the boundary line. A part of me does feel sad for my best friend, who was manipulated similarly, but has gone back to enabling their spouse's toxic behaviors. It's not easy watching someone you care about revert to a situation that once hurt them, but I can't sacrifice my own well-being to save someone who doesn't want saving right now. Maybe one day they'll understand how harmful it all was, or maybe they'll keep doubling down on their choices. That's not in my control anymore. Ultimately, I wrote this to release my story and reaffirm what truly matters. I'm living for me now. I'm healing. I'm not letting bitterness consume me. Instead, I've poured my energy into personal growth, genuine relationships, and planning for my future. That's the real payback. It might not look like the typical scorched earth type of retribution some might expect. No sabotage, no dramatic takedown. Just me refusing to be a casualty in their chaos. And it feels incredibly liberating. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't an aggressive act against someone who wronged you. It's removing yourself from their toxic sphere and living so vibrantly that their negativity becomes irrelevant. I have no illusions that I'll never feel anger or sadness about what happened, but those emotions no longer dominate me. I'm out in the world, discovering new experiences, forging deeper bonds, and breathing easy for the first time in a long while. That, for me, is victory.